Hello, fellow enthusiast. If you're stopping by to watch this, you must be desperate. Well, we're going to spend the next 20 minutes or so going over how to set up an automation on board an ESP device utilizing ESPHome, involving conditions, including weight and conditions as well. So let's jump into it, and hopefully we'll learn something today. All right. So what we did in the last video is went ahead and set up a touch capacitive switch, well, sensor, and wired in a light. So what we're going to do in this one is we're going to add a virtual switch. Virtual switch it's not tied to anything physical outside the chip, and it's not tied to any pins. So just like everything else, we're going to do this real time together. We're going to do ESPHome switch template. It's going to come up. Now there are a few things you can do. Let's go ahead and grab all this code here. We're going to come back here. Keep in mind, we're not going to put switch again because we only put switch in there once. Everything below the switch is determined as a switch. We're going to go ahead and get rid of this. That's a little bit more advanced. We're not going to mess with that today. We're going to go back here. When you use a template switch, you need to add this. This right here is defining the fact. Oh, what did I do? All right, this right here is defining the fact that it is a switch that we do want to see. There we go. All right, the issue that we have here is it's shown red. The reason it's shown red is we have an action of turn switch on and turn switch on. Yet switch 2 does not exist. So we're going to come up here to this one. We're going to grab the ID from here, put it there, and I'm going to change this to off. So where this would work really well, say a garage door opener where you have a relay tied to it. You want to turn the switch on, it'll trigger the relay, garage door opens, turn the switch off, trigger it again, and the garage door closes. Now in that case, I would add some type of condition in there where the switch can only be pressed or turned on, turned off in a certain duration, and trigger the door. Because obviously that might tend to screw it up if you hit it more than once rather quick. All right, so currently, if this is accurate, our template switch right here is going to control this actual physical switch. So now let's go ahead and throw some other conditioning in here. So let's see where we can put this. We're going to come to the binary sensor. And let's go ahead and use we're going to use on press since it's a button. So on press, condition for 1 minute. Let's change this to 5 seconds. The condition is binary sensor is on. And let's go ahead and, well, this is our only current binary sensor, so we'll go ahead and add this guy. Then we want to, let's do a turn switch on. And let's go ahead and add an ID. Like I said before, you should always add an ID to all your entities. Where it comes in handy is if you're going to interlink anything you need it. We're going to follow suit with the rest here. Let's just do a test sensor C. All right, copy that, and we're going to plug that here. All right. So what this is saying right here is that the binary sensor is pressed. And we're adding a condition right here. This is a for condition, a time condition. So it needs to meet that criteria for 5 seconds before it will follow its task. So in that condition right now is that test sensor B, which is the binary, it's the touchpad, B, is held for 5 seconds. Then it should turn on the template switch, which the template switch will turn on the GPOI switch, which is connected to the light. Now we'll see if this works. Typically, you would want, you wouldn't tie a time condition into itself. So, but I only have two pigtails on this current chip, but we'll give it a try. We'll work on it together. We'll see what it does. Alexa, close the office window. All right, we're gonna wait for the logs to start spitting out on us. Still waiting. Might speed us up. All right. So I kind of cut it there just for time. So it popped up. So if you notice, I can still turn on button as a light. I can turn on the template switch, which will also turn it on. See, these are now linked together. Now, where this is beneficial, well, we'll get into that in a moment, but say I had 5 different relays or 5 different lights or 5 different switches tied to this. I can create one template switch that will turn them all on. So you can have individual control, or you can have one switch to turn them all on, or you can have a switch to turn on 2 of them, or you can, honestly, the sky's the limit. You can add 60, 100 template switches if you wanted to. So now let's try the touchpad. Let's see if this actually works. So if I touch it, so it's shown on the screen. Let's go ahead and touch it for 5 seconds and see if it actually works. I'm not sure if it will. Nope. So sometimes you can tie something to itself. But once again, this is a lesson learned. Let's take a look at this and see if we can figure out why it's not working. So the problem is when you press this is going to run through. It's going to run through all the code. It's going to look at the conditions. So when you press this, if it doesn't meet the conditions, it's going to move on from there. So let's try something different. Let's go ahead and break this connection. And because this is a template switch, I don't need a turn on action, turn off action. Let's get rid of that. And let's take this, so these two are no longer linked together. Let's take this switch and let's add it to our condition for the 5 seconds. So we're going to do switch is on. All right, let's go ahead and run this again. All right, so it got sped up. So if you remember, our template switch is no longer, if you notice, no longer tied to our light. Sensor still works. Light is not turning on. Now, if we turn our template sensor on, turn it off, it's still not working. Let's turn it on, and let's wait 5 seconds. I think it's been 5 seconds. Add on release. We're going to go ahead and add a condition here. Just going to copy and paste this. All right, so our condition, and we're going to get for this go around, we're going to get rid of this and just do a standard condition. And you know what? We're going to say that the switch needs to be off. If that happens, we're going to copy and paste this. If that happens, we want this switch. Damn it. What am I doing here? We want this switch to be off. I'll make sure you follow your indents there. These two need to line up. And just rule of thumb, try to keep these lined up as well. All right. So what we have here with the binary sensor, the capacitive touch here, is if our template sensor is on for 5 seconds, we want to turn on our light. When we release it, as long as the template switch is off, will turn off the light. So let's go ahead and compile it and see if it works. Oh, nope. Let's do wireless. Now, depending on what time we're at, I might skip through this. I might make you sit and watch. I'm not sure. So we're going to sit and keep it on this screen all the way until we start seeing the log output. That means that this is connected to the internet. They're back to our Wi-Fi and connected back to the API of Home Assistant. So if we go over in settings, we're going to see it as unavailable at the moment. Now it should pop up. There we go. All right. You notice, touch a switch, nothing. I can turn the light on. And you know why it's doing it? Because this switch was off. Touch it, it turns off, but it doesn't turn on. Now if I turn on the template switch, I turn on the light, and I touch it, it does not turn off. Because our condition is that this template switch is off. So now if I touch it, it'll turn it off. So now let's leave that template switch on for 5 seconds, and we'll see if it turns it on like we set it to. And it did. Notice it's not turning it off because our condition is that that needs to be off. Hopefully that part was simple enough. So let's go ahead and let's get rid, and benefits of this is copy and paste. Hands down, it's the easiest way to do this, copy and paste. All right, so let's go ahead and for this to turn on, let's make this switch has to be on. Then our end reaction is to turn on the switch. We're going to leave the other one alone. Actually, you know what? Let's do this. We want the switch on for both actions. And I will show you here why that comes in handy. Once again, I'm not sure if I'll fast forward this. You might be stuck watching it. Any second now. There we go. All right, so we're going to come back over here. Now this switch is off. We're going to hit our capacitive touch. And nothing. We set this to where the switch needed to be on for it to control the light. Turn it off, nothing. Turn it on, and it works. So you get really in depth. Just go back here. I'll try to wrap this video up here shortly. Let's go ahead and make another switch. All right, so we're going to call this, I'll call it AND. We keep it short here. Let's go to D. It's another template switch. We're going to do this. So the condition is going to be, we're going to add an OR condition. And if I am doing this right, and I hope I am, I don't want to have to cut this. So it should be, when you add the OR, so no, I shouldn't say OR, well, yeah, when you add the OR, it's one or the other. Or both. So in this case, what I'm stating, if it works, is one of the template one of the template switches need to be on in order to turn the light on. Now when we release, we only need the first one to be on. So let's go ahead and run this. All right. While we're waiting for that to link back up, we'll kind of get ready on our next one. So now what we can do is, let's say we create a third switch. And this doesn't have to be switches. You can have sensors. So remember, you can't have more than one ID. All right. Let's say this is running, your door sensors and whatnot, or a heater or an HVAC. You can have it where it's a certain temperature, the HVAC turns on, but that only happens if all your windows are closed. So we're gonna come back up here, we create another template sensor. Right now we have it set for either one of these, right? So we can change this to, you know what? Let's try this. Let's put a space here. Let's try this and. All right. So it took me a little bit longer to figure out than it should have. I've done this before, but I don't use this feature much, and it just goes to show you, you know, even if you do this quite a bit, you can tend to have issues. So going back to our conditions here, we're going to use an or condition, and we're also going to use a not condition. When you get into the aspect of using more than one condition, you need to put an indent here. So what I was missing here was an indent here and an indent here. I should have known better. So what we're saying here is when you press it, you can either have template switch C on or template switch D. What we cannot have is template switch E. So we can have C or D on, but we cannot have D. If those two conditions are met, it will turn on the sensor. So we're going to do, just go ahead for ease here. We're going to name this C. So it's going to be D and E. Let's go ahead and compile this one last time. This will come back to this. C, D. Yep. All right. That looks a little funky. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and delete this. And honestly, I mean, when you're playing around with this, you do want to get to the point of just getting those old entities out there that are no longer being used. Test unit dot local 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's a password reset. Let's go back in this and hopefully we're looking up. There we go. All right, to bring our bring this back, you notice nothing. So our condition said that we could have C or D on, but we could not have E. So you notice it is not working. Let's go ahead and turn C and D off, just E. It is not working. Now let's turn on both C and D, and it should work. Now let's turn off C, just have D on. It does work. Now keep in mind the reason it's not turning off is the condition that we had to turn off is that C was on. So we just had C off, we had D on, and it works. Let's turn D off. And well, you know, it's still working. Let's turn E on. Nothing. Now keep in mind our condition for turning it off was that C was on. So we can turn it on manually and hit it to turn it off. So, I mean, the whole point here is you can get pretty advanced into automations. It takes a little bit to kind of get used to. It's easy, you know, once you have a few projects under your belt, you can truly go back to those projects and a lot of times copy and paste the code and then, you know, make minute changes so you're not having to retype this out every single time. And honestly, I should even create a cheat sheet and just have that off to the side. So keep in mind, I mean, right now we're using a capacitive touch. I can change this out real simple for a standard push button. Now keep in mind, now at this point, if you go back to the original video, set up, you know, starting off with sensors, we would have to reverse the state of this. Since we went from the capacitive touch to a button. So we're going to go to our first GPOI binary. Let's go ahead and invert that. Go ahead and run that. I promise we'll finish up here in a second. Might have already dropped off at this point. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. Maybe even drop me a like or a comment. Let me know I should keep doing this type of content. So the chip is already booted up at this point. You notice it's not working. The reason it's not working is for template switches, when you power cycle it, reboot, or you reflash it, they're going to naturally turn off. So if you notice, all three of these turned off. So, but if I turn back on C, now it's going to work correctly. So you can really get creative with this. I mean, we can change, once again, change the light out for a buzzer or a relay. So get really creative with it. It's not only a matter of using, say, binary as a trigger. You can have a sensor. You can have a temperature sensor when it's above a certain temperature, below a certain temperature. You can have a whole slew of conditions, but they all work the same way.